Hashtag AskGojiMan. I've watched some of your previous videos in which you talk about Sibo and digestive problems in vegans. Can you provide further details on what symptoms to look out for spotting that you may have Sibo? Great question, let's get to it, roll the titles. Welcome back, it's good to see you all again. If we haven't met before then, hi, I'm GojiMan. I'm currently finishing a Masters in Nutrition and qualifying as a nutritionist, and next year I'll be studying for a PhD in Nutritional Science. I do plant-based nutrition videos every other day in which I answer your health questions under the hashtag AskGojiMan. So if you have a question for me, then hashtag AskGojiMan in the comments below, and I'll choose one of these questions to answer in my next video for you. And without further ado, to the question. Now, if you've watched my channel for any period of time, you will have heard me say that up to 84% of people with IBS and bloating, well, they have Sibo as the underlying cause. And Sibo really is a vegan's worst nightmare, as the foods that will normally make them feel healthy will send their health spiraling in the other direction. And today I'm going to drill down into what symptoms to look out for if you have any digestive issues, because if you do have Sibo and it's not treated properly, there is a high probability that you will start running into autoimmune problems or other chronic health problems such as depression. So Sibo stands for Small Intestinal Bacterial Overgrowth. So essentially you have a bacterial infection or migration of good or bad bacteria into the small intestines where there shouldn't be any bacteria, as this is where you absorb your nutrients. Now, as I said in my last video, I will be producing a detailed book for free that will go into these digestive health topics in a lot more detail in terms of testing and how you fix these problems. But for the purposes of today's video, you should understand that Sibo is often only one piece of the digestive health puzzle. But if you do have Sibo, then it is often one of the larger pieces of the puzzle. Now, one of the biggest issues for people with bloating and IBS is that they will visit their doctor, and their doctor will often not have heard of Sibo, as it's really only emerged over the last 10 years as being the driving cause of IBS in many cases. As a result, these patients are sent on their way with an IBS diagnosis with no further analysis of their guts, which is a massive issue because a high proportion of those with undiagnosed Sibo will eventually transition into other health issues such as hyper or hypothyroidism. So people get caught up in massive digestive issues, suffering, floating from doctor to doctor to doctor, with negative colonoscopies, etc., and being told they have IBS. There is nothing that can be done, and they will just have to manage their symptoms with either diet or medications. Now, if you suffer with IBS or similar gut issues, then you don't need me to tell you how debilitating this can be and the negative impacts that it can have on your life. So if you have any of these digestive problems, then you really need to pay attention to what I am about to say. Because if you can identify with the symptoms that I'm about to go over, there is a very high probability that Sibo is the cause behind most of your problems. Now, this could be Sibo in conjunction with stomach acid issues, digestive enzyme issues, bile issues, or even in conjunction with oxalate, histamine and salicylate issues. But once you have the main driving factor in place, you can resolve this and then work on all the other issues as you go. So as I said earlier, with Sibo you have a bacterial infection or migration in the small intestines. So when you eat carbohydrates, sugars and starches, the bacteria eat these foods and then ferment them, and this causes a massive release of hydrogen and methane in the small intestines. So when this happens, you will notice that after your meals you will bloat and have a lot of belching and farting. This is often in conjunction with constipation and diarrhea, so the common IBS type symptoms you will all have heard about. So the first symptom to look out for if you have Sibo is feeling a lot worse in terms of those typical IBS symptoms after you have eaten any form of fibre, carbohydrate or sugar. So this means the bloating, cramping, abdominal pains, diarrhea or constipation. So keep a 2-week food diary and see if you can spot the trends in the foods that are inducing those IBS and bloating symptoms. This is really important you do it, especially if you've recently gone vegan, as many people go vegan to heal digestive issues such as IBS, and because they unknowingly have Sibo, they load the body up with fruits and vegetables, obviously to improve their health, but the bacteria just ferment everything, making them feel worse and worse on a vegan diet. After a period of time, these symptoms get too bad and many will start eating meat, eggs, fish and dairy again, which in many cases will lessen some of the symptoms. But as I always say, you are not fixing the problem here, you are just reducing the symptoms. So if you don't kill off the bacteria in the small intestines, then eventually after a period of time, the leaky gut, the autoimmune conditions and your overall health will spiral out of control. Now, the second symptoms to look out for are those reactions to probiotics. So many people with IBS read online that probiotics can sometimes help with their symptoms. If you have Sibo as the underlying cause of your IBS and throw extra bacteria into the small intestines, then most of your symptoms will get dramatically worse. Another thing to look out for with Sibo, have you ever noticed with antibiotics you've taken in the past that your IBS symptoms massively reduced or went away with taking the antibiotics, only to return with a vengeance a week or so later? Now, I will go into a lot more detail with the book and the case studies on this channel showing the process of me treating people with Sibo, but if you can't wait until early next year for this content, then be very careful about throwing antibiotics at the problem. Unfortunately, Sibo has a high recurrence rate, especially with antibiotic use. You need to fix the underlying causes of the Sibo in a methodical manner, otherwise every 6 or 12 months or so you will find that you are on antibiotics with a flare-up. If you suspect Sibo, see a functional doctor or a naturopath, get tested and then discuss with them the herbal antibiotics, etc. They may take slightly longer to kill off the bacteria, especially if you've had a bad infection, but these herbal antibacterials have been shown in trials to be more efficient in treating Sibo than conventional pharmaceuticals. Another thing to look out for, do you have celiac or gluten sensitivity? So if you have either of these, did you only notice a slight improvement when you took gluten out of your diet? The reason I say this is that often people with celiac and gluten sensitivities have multiple gut issues at play. So if you have cut out the gluten and felt mildly better but didn't get the lift that you were expecting, then again Sibo here could be the issue. And one of the other common symptoms and problems associated with Sibo is anemia, which is low amounts of red blood cells and low iron. Or you could have low levels of other vitamins and minerals such as calcium, potassium or ferritin, which is obviously your iron storage. So when you have Sibo, it is often responsible for the malabsorption of your food. Your small intestines are meant to be pulling in the vitamins and minerals, but instead the bacteria are feeding off the fibre and nutrients, leading you down the deficiency alley. If you have a history of any of these symptoms that I've discussed in today's video, especially in conjunction with chronic conditions such as thyroid issues, autoimmune conditions, fibromyalgia, bone and joint conditions, and diabetes despite having a good diet, well then you need to test for Sibo. It's very common to have Sibo as a driving factor not only for IBS, but for all of these other diseases. Now, as I keep saying, I will go through all of this in great detail in my book and case studies. But please do not wait for this content if you suspect you have Sibo. You need to fix the problem as quickly as possible, especially if you've been dealing with the condition for any period of time. So here are some quick tips to help you. Find a doctor or naturopath who you can do a lactulose breath test through. It's a simple test in which you drink a lactulose solution and then measure the amount of methane and hydrogen in your breath. Humans obviously can't digest lactulose properly, so it should go straight out through the bowels. When you have Sibo, the bacteria will process the lactulose and produce a lot of methane and hydrogen, and then this is measured in your breath. And when you have the positive result, it is really important that you work with someone who knows what they're doing and how to treat Sibo. They also must understand the associated problems with oxalates, histamines and salicylates, otherwise they could make you a lot worse. So essentially they will put you on a restricted carbohydrate and sugar diet such as the SCD for a period of time, while you kill off the bacteria with either antibiotics or the herbal antibiotics such as allicin or berberine. 90% of the time I would choose herbal antibiotics over pharmaceutical antibiotics, but this needs to be based on your condition and a conversation with your doctor or naturopath. Then there is a period of time where you slowly increase the amount of carbs, fibre and beneficial bacteria back into the gut. Now if this process is done properly, you can normally reverse most issues and then eat most carbohydrates without any problems. But there are some people with severe Sibo that has destroyed the gut that may struggle with certain foods such as beans, but these people tend to be the worst of cases. I would stick my head out on the line and say that the vast majority of people turning their backs on veganism have undiagnosed Sibo or possibly other issues that is making them feel so crap. If they address these issues, they would thrive and feel incredible on a vegan diet, but because of lack of knowledge and education, they are running to social media calling foul play on the vegan diet. And this is something I really want to address in my case studies moving forward. So that's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, if you have a question for me, then hashtag #AskGojiMan in the comments below, and I'll choose one of these questions to answer in my next video for you. And as always, remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.